So with that said, the gangster world and the hip hop community continue to become one.
Yes, the convergence is.
Of it.
I mean, yeah.
So I don't know if you had a chance. I think it premiered last week. The Irv Gotti Murder Inc. Documentary.
Oh yeah,
Docudrama that's on BET,
definitely. Yeah.
chronicling the rise and fall of Murder Inc., the record company of the late 90s,
Late '90s, early
2000. And, for those who don't remember,
Ashanti.
Ja Rule
Jay-Z was supposed to
be a part of that, actually.
Yeah, DMX.
Right. And, just the other side anecdote, that would have been prior to Murder Inc., Ja Rule did a little deal with Tommy Boy.
Okay.
And I think we've mentioned this story before, but I was dating a young lady by the name of Devin Robeson. Shout out to Devin out there. Really a good girl. Messed that one up. But anyway, she was working for Tommy Boy. She had just got through working. She was really trying to plug me in, and she saw we were getting some bread.
Okay.
This is again during this Pakistani thing, and I had opened up the shop up on 125th Street. And she had just left PMD, which was Parish Making Dollars. This is right where EPMD, where Eric Sermons and Parrish Smith had kind of went to do their own separate things for a minute. Mm-hmm. And she started working for Parrish Smith, for PMD, Parish Making Dollars, and then she had went over to Tommy Boy. And I never forget, she comes home and she's so excited about this new artist, Ja Rule, and she's talking about if somebody put some money behind this guy, what he could do, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm stuck on the bag, and I'm like, we getting stupid money. What the hell is a Jahu or Ja Rule or Ja Lu? Yeah, another one. I think I did a post on that, learning to live with regrets, right?
Definitely,
that was definitely one. But, they chronicle in that documentary. Check it out. Always, we are not haters. We are congratulators. It's a good piece of content that Irv Gotti and those guys did with the Murder Inc. story.
Yeah.
Because they were hot. They were like big. They were
were on fire, man.
So now the thing is where it connects with the underworld or the street thing, the hustle thing, the life and the struggle. Mm-hmm. Irv Gotti and those guys are Queens, New York guys, right?
Right.
They linked up with a guy or became close friends with a guy by the name of Kenneth Supreme Mcgriff.
Okay, the big guy out now.
He's not out.
No, I'm saying that the stories.
The big story, right. So Supreme had went away in the 80s on a big heroin conspiracy. By the time he comes home, this hip-hop thing, but I think it's far back as Eric B. and Rakim.
No, that's 80s for sure.
They were giving Supreme shout-outs, right?
That was 80s for sure.
Yeah, he's been getting shout-outs in the streets and in hip-hop for a long time.
In fact, I do wonder if the world-famous Supreme team had anything to do with him, because that was a rap group, the world-famous Supreme team.
I remember them. I remember that.
Buffalo Girls Go Round the Outside.
Right.
They did a lot of work with Malcolm McLaren. And what was it? Hey DJ.
Hey, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That stuff. That was the world famous Supreme team.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
some
of my New York people can probably put us up. Which came first, them or can Mcgriff's hook up?
I think Mcgriff, because I think the Supreme team had already reached some real notoriety and fame for the bag they were moving, like in the mid '80s.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, yeah, and that's about 84, 85.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a when Kenneth McGriff, after his first indictment, then later that crew, Fat Cat Nichols, and of course where it all becomes urban legend. Those who've seen Get Rich or Die Trying,
right,
the 50 Cent story. That is supposed to be roughly based, the character in Get Rich and Die Trying is roughly based on Kenneth McGriff.
Gotcha.
Supposedly, right?
Right.
So anyway, in real life, Irv Gotti and Supreme become friends.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part of the game, again, those of you who followed the story know that when I started working for the old man, we were doing a lot of international business, and a lot of his connects had legitimate businesses, and I was kind of responsible for getting the money sometimes to different people who would put it into certain companies and then would allow the money to come back out the other end in either real estate properties or jewelry or more legitimate forms of income so that the money could be justified. The authorities call that money laundering.
Few of them do.
Right. When the feds get on Mcgriff the second time,
Right.
they then also went after Murder Inc., the record company,
Mm-hmm.
and indicted Chris and Irv Gotti and I believe some other people in the Murder Inc. scenario and charged them with money laundering, accusing that they were taking monies from Kenneth Supreme's street hustle, that Murder Inc. was being used as a money laundering funnel.
Okay.
Now, I don't believe that to be true, and in fact, they end up beating that case because what people don't know who ain't in that world, by that time, hip hop had began to be bigger than the dope game.
Mm-hmm.
Irv Gotti and those guys were making more money than Kenneth Supreme was making in the streets. I mean, they had like 20 number one hits or something. So it was really just the opposite. It was Irv Gotti and those guys taking legit money, maybe just giving it to their man who was still running around.
Right.
But of course the feds came when you are dealing with a high profile federal case. Those guys play for keeps. Our community is still a little bit slow on really what it means when
The conviction rate.
Conviction rate of the Fed is still 97%. So it calls for the dismantling of Murder Inc., a long, expensive legal battle. I saw Irv Gotti was on Drink Champs, and he's talking about basically, he asked his lawyers, what is money laundering? Now, it's like, should have called me. I could have really helped you guys out. But we don't do a good job with transference of knowledge sometime in our community. Yeah. And his lawyers explained to him basically, what I said earlier, that money laundering is when you take illicit money and it goes into a legitimate business, and then that money is re-siphoned and used. It's called cleaning up the money. That's and right. He's like, well, I didn't do that. And the feds had offered him a really sweetheart deal. I think they offered Irv and his brother like 6 months, and they would have got to keep their record business
the record
and everything.
Label and everything.
Thing is, by admitting that they were laundering money and taking the cop, then that's admitting that Kenneth Supreme gave you dope money. They call that in the street dry snitching.
Yeah.
Basically. Because even though you're not testifying against your man, you're saying, yeah, it's true that my man was doing something wrong and I was involved with it. So he didn't do that. The feds end up still getting the conviction against Kenneth Supreme. Bunch of real nigga shit there with tapes about people getting shot and all kind of stuff. It got real convoluted. But it did cause for the dismantling of Murder Inc. And it never really recovered. But with that said, so you got they're doing a movie. Irv Gotti and his guys are doing a full movie on the Kenneth Supreme situation.
All right.
Right? You got Nas is doing something with Showtime.
Okay.
On the Kenneth Supreme team story, right? And you got a brother, Bimmy, who I believe is, I don't know if you've ever seen that doc, Hip Hop Undercover.
Yeah.
It's got like Bimmy, Big U.
On Amazon Prime or something
it's
like
good.
that.
It's good. Again, check it out. We don't hate around here.
Or it's Netflix or Amazon Prime. One of the two.
Hulu, maybe.
Oh, it's Hulu.
I think I saw it on Hulu.
Okay.
But again, check it out if you guys are into this kind of stuff. Hip Hop Undercover. It goes into this brother, Bimmy, who ran around with the Supreme team, also a brother out of Queens. End up then getting involved with Run DMC early in their career. You know, it's a lot going on there. Jam Master Jay and some,
Yeah.
it was a whole lot going on there. Obviously, 50 Cent ends up supposedly, the people that shot him all those times was a part of that Supreme situation. There was a lot of nigga shit going on.
Yeah, man.
But with that said, so Nas is doing a doc.
Okay.
On Showtime, and then Benny supposedly also has another project coming out about Kenneth Supreme. So once again, family, I guess one day we'll get to the point where we're getting to the point where everybody loves the rappers who talk about being dope dealers. I guess maybe now the actual people who sold the dope
might get they shine.
might actually get their shine. I never understood that how you can love the rapper who talks about hustling, but then you condemn the hustler. But I digress on that. So I'm going to be very interested in that. I mean, I think it's just good for all of us. It's good for it's good for the culture.
Good for the culture.
For everybody to get an opportunity. And then I guess the part that's a little distressing to me, though, so that went down, 20 years ago? This whole Supreme, right? And now you fast forward now with this YSL indictment with Young Thug and Gunna and these young brothers down in Atlanta. And I have not followed again, all caught up with the stuff we've been dealing with, but they tell me there's more indictments coming of some other prominent African-American young men involved in hip-hop who are at the top of the food chain then. And I just don't know what it will take for us to figure out that, A, the feds do not fuck around. I don't know who be gassing up these kids to think those people be busy.
Mm-hmm.
So just because they don't be knocking on your door don't mean they don't know what you're doing. And trust and believe, when they find time to get around to you, they will get around to you.
And truthfully, it's the culture of the social media to throw up the guns and the dope and what do you call it, the money. Which is basically just sealing your own fate.
I mean,
right? You snitching on yourself. We did a post.
We did a post on that, but it's epidemic, and I don't know what those young men did or did not do. I just as a member of the African American community, I wish them well. I hope that they were not involved.
Prayers to you.
But that they didn't. You look at the feds, how they came after Jay Prince. So this nexus, right? You look at how the feds came after Jay Prince. You look at the outcome of Suge Knight, and it's a great thing that Snoop has been able to buy a death row and kind of re-energize that, right?
Yeah.
You look at the feds coming after Murder Inc.
Mm-hmm.
If it's 2022, if you're getting legitimate money, keeping it real is not continuing to partake in criminal activity when you don't need the money. Excuse me. And when your legitimate hustle is way more than whatever bullshit street hustle you think you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as all these docs are getting made, and hopefully, though, we're getting there's some lessons that are meant to be learned.
That's right.
From this stuff, so that each generation does not go through the wealth loss, the times and families destroyed by incarceration over what? In Kenneth Mcgriff's defense, and he's from our era. The goal, he tried to produce a movie. Mcgriff did, right?
Yeah.
And he did want to get involved in the record industry. And he unfortunately, probably kept his hand in the bag a little bit longer than was prudent.
Yeah.
And did not separate itself at a certain point from the violence, and that people live, they make mistakes. When you got a friend like Irv Gotti who's making $100 million legitimate, we just got to get to the point, family. Why are you still thinking about killing people? Whatever the beef is, if they ain't coming at you to hurt you, whatever nigga beef, who shot John, or who ran off with the bag, as Royce the 5'9" got a line be like, what Pookie said and what Pookie thought, shit. We can't be going out like that.
Right.
But when I was looking at this YSL thing and this thing, and Kevin Lyles from the 300 Record Group is trying to paint this picture of that these guys are just hip-hop artists, that they're not really gangsters. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, you guys have made it so much harder for people to defend you when you get on social media with guns and money. And then one day it's all cute and fly, but then when them white folks is in your business, now you trying to say I ain't a gangster, but you done spent the last 10 years of your life creating content showing the world that you are a gangster.
And it don't exist in a vacuum. For every one of them murders that happen, from one crew to the next, they all see us as the same.
Oh yeah, the white folks.
I mean, seriously, it's like Dolph to this other one that just got killed like a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember his name, but when it comes to a case happening, I mean, it's just like this is what you do.
Yeah, we gotta do better, and so again, what we're doing here. I think there's some other brothers out there who got some platforms who are speaking some reasonable. Shout out to those guys over at $1 Million Worth of Game.
Yeah, big ups.
Wallow and Gilly the Kid actually are speaking some real shit over there. Mm-hmm. And then it's some other platforms that are actually some guys who've been around the block for real, and know that we just got to do better as a community. We got to do better as a community. But anyway, so I'm interested to see what these Kenneth Supreme projects will do, and the response that they get. Our thing is still about to happen.
I do wonder though, all those projects, how close are they going to be released together? You know what I'm saying? Like with the set on the saturation tip. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the two docs are gonna be. I think like the Nas Showtime thing, like it's coming this year.
Okay.
Or early in the year. The movie, we know it takes a minute to make a movie.
Maybe a couple of years or something like that.
Maybe a couple of years. I mean, they already got the director, the guy who directed The Joker.
Oh, Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips is going to be directing
the
Irv Gotti thing. So
okay.
I mean, he's a pretty big-time director.
I mean, yeah, he's Academy Award winner.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously they got a real budget there.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing with Supreme's going to be going on for a while, and I'm not going to get involved in their business. But I really hope that some of these monies that are being generated, because I assure you that between this movie and the two docs, it's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars generated between Showtime and these other platforms and studios, and that the families of the principal people get to participate in some of this.
Right on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
that would be about right.
It'll be about right. So anyway, chime in, let us know. We're happy to be back.
Yeah, big time.
(1973). The Detroit Free Press's front page proclaims, "Dope kingpins get away with it." They had names like Jesse James, Pretty Ricky, the Black Greek, and Mr. Clean. 2 of the 12 men listed as Detroit's biggest heroin dealers were next-door neighbors, and in reality, they were the 2 largest heroin dealers in Detroit, dwarfing the other men on the list. Eddie the Fat Man Jackson, charismatic son of a pool hall owner, and his chief lieutenant, Courtney the Field Marshal Brown, a former city bus driver, had built an empire on a par with men like Nicky Barnes and Frank Lucas of New York. But theirs was a very different and in many ways more sophisticated operation than Barnes and Lucas's, based on family ties and finesse more than murder and mayhem. They truly were the Motown Mafia, and the saga of Eddie Jackson, Courtney Brown, and their families stretch from the 1960s and into the present day.